guys, Baumhardt here. So what I've got here today is the knife I forged for the instructional coil spring video. And so what I'm going to do today is take you through my process of grinding and shaping. So for you guys out there just kind of trying to get into knife making or interested in knife making, and you don't have a lot of tools, hopefully this will give you some ideas or tips and tricks for kind of using minimal tools with stuff you might already have. So basically I've got a bench grinder with a quartz stone, mill bastard file, and then the Ken Onion WorkSharp sharpener with the grinder attachment on here. And so basically the first thing we're going to do is take on the bench grinder and start putting in the edge bevels and shaping up the blade profile. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is take this on the quartz stone and we're going to start putting in edge bevels here. So basically I'm drawing it along here like that, and that's going to take out a groove essentially down the whole length of that blade because that's the shape of the wheel. Basically with this type of grinder you're just taking grooves out of the blade and then you got to get those out later. So this is definitely not the best way to start grinding at knives, but it is possible, so I'm going to show you how to do that right now. And then with this, it's taking off all these little bits of steel and throwing them. That's what the sparks are, is the burning pieces of steel. So you want to make sure you have the right protection, so gloves, eye protection, ear protection, all that good stuff. Okay, there you go. You can see the little groove that it made there. It wasn't perfectly centered, but you can see how having a board like this locked on really helps with that. Okay, so there's my next pass. So we're just going to keep doing that. And so you can see those little hammer marks there. Those are going to be the trouble areas to get out, but we'll get there. Alright, now we're going to do the other side. Alright, 2 passes there. I can feel this getting pretty hot through the gloves, so I'm going to let this rest a bit. So that's one good reason to wear, obvious reason to wear gloves, is this thing gets very hot. So it's annealed, so I'm not worried about ruining the heat treatment on it because I want this soft so it's easy to work with, but I can feel that heat coming through the leather of the gloves. So if it was just my bare hands, that would be too hot to hang on to. Okay, so I did a little lens change. The blade is cool, so we'll keep grinding this side here. So 2 things I try to do here is keep even, consistent pressure on the grind, and then also I'm not letting the point drag off there because that'll roll your point over. That comes in more important when you're doing your final sharpening, like on the WorkSharp or something like that, but I'm also trying to do that on here. So I'm stopping before the blade comes off of the thing. And that's already getting pretty thin down in there, so I might just leave that alone. So it's getting hot again. So you can see that I really don't try to have my finger applying pressure to the blade as I put it here, because if this slips off or something happens, I don't want my finger hitting the grinder. So right now you can kind of see the unevenness of the edge there. So now I'm going to take the blade profile and I'm going to start cleaning up that and basically creating the point. So you can kind of brace it on your platform there. So you can see where we're at right now. We've got some different grooves and high points, and it's very uneven and all that. So right now I'm going to go into the process of just evening out that entire bevel. So first thing I'm going to do is take my mill bastard file and clamp it down. I'm going to go in a basically draw filing so you can see the direction of the teeth. So we're going to push the teeth that away, and that'll create hopefully nice even grind. It's not going to completely take out some of the deeper grooves, but we're going to be able to see a little bit better what we have to work with. So we're going to clamp that down just so I don't mess up my blade too much. There we go. You can see a little flat spot right here. That's the high point between that low groove and that one right there. So this is just taking off material. So I switched over to a little bit sharper file, and I think you can hear the difference. I know I can feel it. So when you're using a file, the teeth are all going to get gummed up with metal shavings, so every once in a while you got to go through and just clean it out. Yeah, you can see how that's already just filled with metal shavings. So doing this with a file is definitely a little more tedious, but you can see how that's already a pretty even bevel already, a little more even than it was before. It's not perfect, definitely not perfect, but if you wanted to just make knives for your own use, not to sell or anything like that, you're going to be able to make a perfectly serviceable blade. And for me, that's all part of the joy of knife making, is just being able to make a knife. I mean, for me, it doesn't need to look like a $1,000 custom. I'm much more interested in having my knives look like something that was made 1,000 years ago by somebody in Scandinavia. So we got the knife flipped over now. Got a little bit of different camera angle too, just to see what you can see. So doing this kind of file work is not necessary, especially if you've got something like a WorkSharp or any other sort of belt grinder. But I find it rewarding. Especially when I'm interested in how knives were made in the past. Specifically I focus on Viking type knives, but any knives from the Middle Ages or history where the blade was the weapon of choice, and people's lives depended much more on knives than they do so today. I'm just interested to see how they made knives and make knives as much as I can the same way that they did. So this has been a great learning experience for me. It's an interesting process, and then this kind of work will also make the final polish on a grinder like the WorkSharp a little bit easier, so it's not a complete waste of time. But you can see, if you want to try and get this completely homogeneous, you've got this real deep groove right here. Like, it doesn't look that deep, but to try and take off all of that steel in here to even that up, that's a lot of work with just a file. Okay, so you can see that the knife still has got some file marks and stuff on there. So, and the edge is fairly thin. You can kind of see how thin that edge is, so I want to be careful not to make it too thin, because then when it goes in the fire, you run the risk of losing some of that, and when you go to sharpen that, you're going to lose some material. But so right now is the time to take it onto the WorkSharp and try and polish out some of those rougher file marks and some of those rougher grind marks like that. So I'm using this part of the grinder so that as the knife hits it, there's slack, and so it's basically creating a convex grind on there as it kind of just polishes everything up. And there's still some pretty deep file marks in there, so I've got more to do. But I really try not to use this part, especially here on the wheel, because that essentially does the same thing as the big bench grinders. It puts a groove, a polishing groove in the knife that, in the right light. You notice it and it just doesn't look good. So this is a nice upgrade from the file, but it's still definitely not perfect. So I'm working on getting those final deep file marks out, and so there's a tension point right here that keeps the grind pretty flat. I'm not trying to go too far either way, and I want to leave some of this fire scale up here. I don't need to take that off, but this little part of the grinder seems to be doing a good job of taking off those file marks. Okay, so that's about all I'm going to do as far as grinding the blade. I'm happy with that. Nice consistent grind. This one's turning out real well. So the next thing I'm going to do now is just clean up this choil area right in here. I got a half round and a full round file, and I'm just going to smooth that area up in there, and then I'll be about ready for the quench. The WorkSharp works good at cleaning up this area as well. So if you wanted to, you could put another groove in there for like a choil, but I think I'm just going to leave this one because this is meant to be like a Viking knife, and they didn't really put all that extra detail on their knives. They just really kept it simple, so that's what I'm going to do. So I've done about all I want to do as far as grinding and shaping this blade. So it's ready to be quenched and tempered, and then the final edge to be put on there. So the sun's going down. I'm not going to do that today, but I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, and until next time, be more Viking.